Check out the description below this video for more info about the tools and parts for this project. Click on the Show More button for a list of products and get all the specifications by following the links below. Before starting this tutorial, I wanted to point out 2 products that you might be interested in if you don't have the tools, or if the task seems too daunting to accomplish, or you simply don't have the time to go through and repair your current charger for your MacBook. Now this is aftermarket charger. This is for the MacBook produced before mid-2012. This is the L-type plug, and it's available for around $29. And the other one I wanted to show you is the same thing, and this is for MacBooks produced after mid-2012 with the regular square. It's the more modern square type plug. So if you're interested in these products and picking them up for around $29, click on the Show More button, and the links for these products will be in the description below. And now let's get to the tutorial. Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to repair a MacBook power brick. This one's got the wire that going to the computer is actually sectioned off, and I'm going to show you how to reattach this. If you have a cable that's just fraying and it's not connecting anymore because it's totally frayed, this is the same kind of repair. If it's sectioned or it's partly sectioned, this will work for your Mac power brick. So as you can see, there's a closer look at what's going on here. The wire is sectioned right at this cord connector here that goes into the power brick. So the first thing we're going to do is undo this cable here. Just push it towards the top. There you go. Just get this stuff out of the way. First thing we have to do actually is get this box open. And there's no screws, so we can't just open it. We kind of have to break it open. We're going to open these guys, and we're going to get some pliers in here. Okay, this is the tricky part, probably the hardest part of this whole procedure. So you want to get your needle nose pliers right on the corner here and just separate them to get that open. It might take you a couple tries. So I got that side open. Now for this side. There we go. It's open. And these break differently depending on the model, but basically you'll have 2 wire wrapper things and 2 springs. Just put those aside so you don't lose them. And here, just attempt to separate, just completely separate that. Now you don't need to separate the whole box. You just need to get these 2 wires out. There's going to be a black one and a gray one. What you want to do is cut this with a utility knife as close as you can to this cable connector. So that's what we're going to do right now. Okay, there we go. Next what you want to do with your cable strippers is to strip the cable as much as you can and just select the right gauge. I'm trying 16 now. 16 seems to be a good fit. So we got 16. So go on the 16 gauge wire on your stripper, cable stripper, and it should strip the cable right away. There we go. Next step, you want to go to your computer cable, the one that goes out to your computer. And just make a clean cut. So just cut that, get rid of any fraying. Next, what you want to do is cut a slit in this cable housing with your utility knife, and just be really careful not to cut your fingers. And usually you can peel this stuff back once you've cut it a certain length. So I can just take this and peel it back. Make sure all your strands are together, because you need as many strands as you can get. Try not to break any strands. So I've stripped my cable of the housing to about 5 inches, and then I'm going to take my pliers and just cut that insulation right off the cable housing. Sorry, there. Now next step, this is a wire, and it's wrapping another wire inside of it. So what you want to do is unravel this exterior wire to get to the interior one. So just carefully unravel it. It's kind of wrapped in a pattern, so once you figure out the pattern, it comes off pretty easily. But it's just getting that pattern, just understanding the pattern, that's the long part. So I've undone all of my cable, and you see now I have this white cable and I have this stranded cable, which I'm going to twist together. So just twist it as best you can. Next step, I'm going to measure out the length of 1/4 inch shrink wrap that I'm going to need for this cable. So I'm going to go with 2 times the length of what I need, just to be sure. Overlap in this case doesn't matter. So like that, and I'm going to cut it there. So this shrink wrap, I'm going to slip it over the cable. That's going to be our final shrink wrap. So just get that up and out of the way. Then I'm going to take another shrink wrap, and this is an 1/8 of an inch shrink wrap, and I'm going to measure it so that it starts here and ends right here, and gives me enough room to make my splice, to splice it to the other cable. So cut it there and slip it onto this part. So next step, just apply some heat to the shrink wrap. You can just use a regular hair dryer. This is like a construction hair dryer, but any hair dryer will work on the hot setting. Make sure your other shrink wrap isn't in the way. Next up, we're going to cut some 1/8 inch shrink wrap just to cover up the splices that we're going to make. So you can make it about 2 times the length of where your splice is going to be. So I'd say about there. And we're going to need 2 of these. So before you slip these on, just cut these wires to the same length. This is still the cable that's going out to your computer. Cut that one, and then you're gonna want to take off the housing of the white one. So put it on my 16 gauge and remove the housing of that. Next, I want to take these shrink wraps and slip them on these wires. It's important that you have space between your shrink wrap and the place you're going to solder, or else the heat from your wire is going to move up the wire, and your shrink wrap is going to start to melt. It'll melt right here, and you won't be able to move it forward anymore. So you need space right here. So in order to join your cables, just make sure they're sticking out straight like this, and just put them one into each other, like one into the other like that. So there's going to be some strands sticking out there. Just roll them a bit, make sure they're all tied in together. Roll them around a bit. And there, you should have a cable that's somewhat secure. Next, you're going to want to put some soldering flux onto your strands that you're going to be soldering. I don't recommend soldering without this because you're just going to be heating up your cable a whole bunch and the solder won't stick to your cable. You're going to get really frustrated and you'll probably ruin your job. What happens without this stuff is that the solder just works itself into beads, and it's going to be nearly impossible to get your shrink wrap over it. So just get some flux and flux up your soldering area. You don't need that much, but cover the whole thing. If you put too much on like I did, just have a rag handy so you can wipe it off because you don't want to make a mess. So now you've got your soldering iron that's smoking hot, and you've got your flux on your wire. Your wire is fluxed, and you're ready to put the solder on. You're going to see the flux start to boil, and then you can just go ahead and apply the solder. It's going to spread around everywhere. Now I'm going to repeat the same for the other side. Just stick the white wire straight into the other white wire and twist it around a bit. And now it's time to put the flux on. Remember, not put too much, you just need a bit. There we go. And now I'm ready to apply the solder. Now the secret to getting this job done right the first time is to not heat up your wire too much. Now see how short of a time it took me to do these solders. It was really fast, so my wire didn't have enough time to heat up, and if it did, it would have melted my shrink wrap. Now my shrink wrap is still mobile and I can slip it right over the solders that I just did, so I'm going to do that right now. There's the white one. Okay, so now I've got both my shrink wraps in place. I'm just going to plug in my heat gun here. And I've slipped my shrink wraps all the way up in there as far as I can go. So get them both in place, because once you put your heat gun, you're going to apply heat to these and they're both going to be melting at the same time. So make sure that's all ready to go. And fire up your heat gun and take it away. Make sure your other 1/4 inch shrink wrap that's going to wrap your main cable isn't in the way, because this stuff melts pretty fast. I mean, it shrinks pretty fast. So you want to just do it right the first time. So there is some insulating grease inside of these power bricks. So if any of it goes into your, gets out onto your box, just wipe it away. Don't be surprised, just so you're not surprised about why your thing's all greasy. Especially if you're using a heat gun on it, it might start to melt. So, and also if part of your casing is broken, like this one, for example, oh, that's still hot, is cracked right here, but we're gonna glue that back together with super glue, and it should be good as new. Well, almost as good as new when we're done with it. So, next step is just to get these cables back kind of shaped so that they can fit back through the hole there. Like that, and make sure this thing closes before you go any further. Okay, so I've made sure that mine can close all the way, it can close properly. There's some insulating sheets in there, and once you pry this apart somewhat, they get bent out of shape slightly, but so that's why it doesn't look like it can go back together. But once you press it, and just make sure everything lines up and the cables aren't pinching in here, and then you're good to go to the next part. So the next part is just slipping your 1/4 inch shrink wrap back over and just getting it as far in there as possible. If you're wondering about where to get these shrink wraps, I'm going to have a link in the description with all the product specifications and where to pick these up. Alright, so once you're done slipping over this 1/4 inch shrink wrap onto the other 2 wires, just go ahead and shrink that. And also just get rid of these things if they don't fit. Maybe if the tabs are all still on there, you can get them to fit on, but they're not really that useful. You don't absolutely need them, so if they don't fit on the first try, just toss them. Okay, so we're going to use super glue to glue this closed. The plastic is broken here. It's really too bad they don't make these with screws, but anyways. So we're going to put super glue here, so we're going to need to just give it a little wipe down to make sure all the dirt and grease is gone. And I've got some clamps ready to help me keep it clamped down when I add the super glue, or after I finish adding the super glue and I'm holding it together. So I'm going to get busy cleaning this, wiping it down. Now I'm going to be adding my bead of super glue along the edge here, and just to make, I'm going to try to get it on the upper lip of this little inner part. This little inner plastic part here, and I've got my clamps all measured to the right size so that I can just clamp them on right after. There we go. Just gonna be putting a bead right along that upper lip there. Of course, it's a good idea to test your cable before you glue it back together, because if your connections aren't right, you could be in a terrible situation if you glue it back together and your connections are bad. So just make sure you check that before. But I'm pretty confident that these are good, so I'm not going to test it. I'm just going to go right ahead and glue it. So here we go. Got my clamps all ready to go, and I'm going to press it down right now. So three clamps is really ideal, and if you don't have any clamps, you can just hold this shut. But it's kind of hard to get all 4 corners really with 0 gap between them. So I kind of like using these little clamps. So when I'm done, I just like to run a bead across this separation here, just to make sure that it's really nice and glued together tight. So last step, I'm just going to take my glue gun and make a nice bead of glue around here just to redo that connection, because we had to get rid of the connector. The reason why we have to get rid of that connector is that there's no real way to fit the wires in there with the solders. The points at which we solder get really hard and unflexible, so there's just I've tried to get the connector in there with the solders, and there's just no room. There's not like 1 inch of space in there, so just get rid of that connector. So I'm gonna go ahead and redo the seal here with the glue gun. Alright, so I'm back at the desk. I've got my power brick that I've just repaired. That's my super nice glue gun job. I mean, you can't be a perfectionist with this stuff. What matters if it works, right? If you got juice going in your computer, if you can recharge it, that's what's essential here. So here I'm going to go connect this thing up to my power port. And there's that wonderful green light. That means it's working. And right up there, that little lightning sign, that means it's charging. So we've got success here. We've got a working power supply, and it was green, now it's orange. It means it's charging. And this is the one. Follow it back. It's plugged in right there. If you want a list of tools and parts for this project, they're going to be in the description below. So go ahead there and just gather all the different things that you're going to need for the project. And I can't recommend enough using Flux on your solders just to do it right the first time. Don't try soldering without the Flux. You're just going to end up cursing and potentially ruining your job. So use the Flux, and like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Check out the description below this video for more info about the tools and parts for this project. Click on the Show More button for a list of products and get all the specifications by following the links below.